Колеги, вітання.
We continue our working day, colleagues, and the topic of the next press briefing, film premiere Rejection, Battle for Ukraine by Nemyria Tomak, author of the journalist of at the center of Civil Liberties, Ludmila Nemyria, director, producer, general Live TV, Zaslavskiy, his executive director of Human Rights House Kiev. Good morning. As it was already announced, today at 7 p.m. in Kiev there will be first time show Rejection, Battle for Ukraine. This is a documentary about the first stage of destabilization of the situation in Donbass, about the war which at present caused a lot of victims. And all of that is accompanied with such a big number of propaganda and fake information that if you understand how all of this started and reasons, causes, and that's very important to understand, and not only for Ukraine, but also for international community, which is under the influence of some manipulatory messages from Russia. And our task as of Kiev Human Rights House to spread the knowledge about the situation, knowledge of how all of this started, about this war, about huge violence in Donetsk and Luhansk regions before the international community noticed that there is a war, and the war in Donbass. We'll use our resource as a member of the international network to spread that information. We are planning to demonstrate that documentary in 13 countries where they have the House for Human Rights. Good morning, Nemyria Tomak, my name, and I represent the Center of Civil Liberties, initiative Maidan Source. This is not the first experience of developing or making documentaries. This is the second time with Live TV, and the first one was about killings on Maidan on the 20th of February. It's internet. That's why we have this interest to this also topic. And for us as an advocacy group, people who deal with human rights issues, it's very important in that how my colleague told of that huge violence that has started long before we started to count days of this military conflict in Donbass. I mean about Russian spring of 2013, when they started kidnapping and torturing, when they began huge campaign to threaten and of pressing out from Donetsk and Luhansk regions to those people who had the Ukrainian position and who understood what it was about, and they understood that there could be a war, and who were trying to stop that war by all means. Also, it was important in this documentary to show that instrument of violence as one of the instruments that brought to the war. You can be confused with the name of the movie of this documentary, and it's that was we meant, because we're trying to make research what happened, that we have this military conflict, what could not stop the war. And there are different factors, and Russia, of course, betrayal among police, among law enforcers, that's obvious. Position of local authorities, very often not clear and cunning. That's true. There were a lot of factors, but also we have to remember that in every segment, even among law enforcers and local self-governance, there were people patriotic, and against them they directed that campaign of threatening campaign and efforts to press them out or to make them to silence them. I would like to describe how we developed this documentary. We focused on interviews with participants of those events, witnesses and victims. I am not afraid to use that term. We recorded that on liberated territories in Luhansk and Donetsk regions, also in Kiev. And these materials are unique. This is oral history, which we'll need to analyze in order to understand all. Every part, every story should be analyzed. That was also our goal, but to fit everything into one documentary, it's unrealistic, because everyone we have in the script that deserves just a separate documentary, and we had discussions about the titles, because we wanted to put as much information as possible, because we didn't want them to show like a talking head, because everyone is a story, and that's the story of battle. That's why all these interviews are unique. In the end, I want to say that they will show with English subtitles, and there will be guests from international organizations, our colleagues, and for whom we did prepare these titles. But then it will be also there will be subtitles in French and German. These three languages, as we know, those are local languages in EU, and so this documentary is made for international audience also, and they will review the issue of sanctions. So it will be good to remind them how all of that started, and now it's a different stage. It's the war. It's a total violence, but this is a different chapter. But the beginning of the story was like this, and we should remember that. Thank you.
I am Ludmila Nemyria, and I'm very glad that I had a chance to be a scriptwriter and director of this film. I was born and raised in Donbass. However, I've not been living there for quite a lot of time, but my near and dear were living there, and many of them have left. So for me, this film was very important and very complicated. I want to sincerely thank my colleagues from Human Rights Organization, Maria and Albert, and they are doing a immeasurable work now, because they collect the information on what was going on, because assessment is easier, but it is much more complicated to listen to what the witnesses say, those who lived through. And maybe this film is a bit complicated, a bit controversial, but I hope it's interesting. And the title for me is, rejection as a physiological process, because this process is very, very widespread, and it depends. The speed of it depends on many components, and there was a lot of components in the film, and in the very process of the war in Donbass, and in the process of rejection in Donbass, there was a lot of components. Russia and information war and the policy that was launched a lot of years ago, and this is one of the important segments of this rejection. And it is hard to say what was rejected by what, and I hope that you will be able to answer this question after you've seen the film. We started to make the film according to a very simple scheme, framework. We had an idea, and we started to collect the interviews, and then we just listened to them and try to understand what has happened. We have first stated about this film a year ago. I think it was being filmed for a year or so, and we went to editing it 4 months ago. We wanted to call this film a story of one technology, the technology that was used by Russia in Georgia and Chechnya and Transnistria. But when we got the interviews and listened to them and transcribed them, we understood that it is not the Russian technology that is important there. When you listen to those people, you understand clearly that Donbass is Ukraine, and that Ukrainians, just as anywhere else, live there, and they resisted and they fought. And now I just want to wish that they come back home, heroes of our film, and that we may be able to claim back those territories. And once again, I want to thank my colleagues from Human Rights Organization who did a lot so that the film happens, and the team of our Ukr Live TV, a small internet TV operation. Any questions, colleagues? The word rejection, I think that this is, the first impression is that this is a very emotional, and it seems from the first sight that the process of accepting back is almost impossible. When may it happen? You know, rejection is not a completed process. This is an ongoing process, and it is very much depends on us all, including those who are there, from underground and non-underground organizations, from the authorities in Kiev. The rejection process depends on all of them, and it is easy to stop it. If we were able to influence the minds of people there more, and the minds of people who are on the liberated territories, and I think Maria can tell you more. I want you to understand that rejection is not a completed process. This is the process that is going on, and our task is not to make it happen. Every time when we are talking about whether we will be able or not to get the Donbass back, we have to talk about what's happening on the liberated territories. And there are shameful things. The investigations are not going on as they should. For instance, the Volodarsky City Council councillor Reznichenko, whose body was found only 7 months after he escaped. And with some exceptions, like in Slovyansk, where something is happening, but go to the north of Luhansk region, nothing is happening there. Mr. Dunayev there is talking about what kind of heroes are the so-called militia. And we have, of course, to talk about that we have to claim back Donbass and Crimea, but why do we apply too little effort to get the liberated territories back? Because one of the reasons why investigations are not going properly is that the procurator's office and the courts and other law enforcers are not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe the Russian tank drivers, and as Putin said, the miners and tractor drivers come back and attack tomorrow. So this is the first point. My second point, I want to reproach the state. We're talking about claiming back Donbass, but the topic that pains us all are Ukrainian political prisoners in Russia. I'm sorry, but we are going mingling among the MPs and asking them, can you pay for a lawyer? But is the Ukrainian state able to protect our citizens in the Russian Federation who are imprisoned. And the Ministry for Foreign Affairs says, no, we don't have money, sorry. And it happens so that only American or European funds are able to give money to protect those people. So we have a very unstable situation in the liberated territories, and the latest attack on Marinka is a confirmation to this, and I guess that we should all concentrate on this.
You told that the task for the documentary to show facts. What was in real life? Could you say in one sentence what was there? What's the goal? What's the opinion? What's the thought? What melody goes through the whole documentary? Will it be shown everywhere, and can all the people see that, and where? In one word, rejection is that instead of the sentence. Watch it, and it will be interesting for me to know what you answer to your question. It will be. There are still people. There are still our professionals who are making editing cuts, and we will invite you when we know exactly where it will be shown. No questions. Thank you very much. I would like to remind you that at 7 p.m. in Kino Panorama, we invite you all, and it will be free of charge. Next briefing will be at 12:30.